Hello and welcome everyone. Um, we're here for our second live stream during Backend Appreciation Month, and today we are joined by Shams from BuildShip. Shams, welcome.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me. Um,
So we've sort of started a month announced that we've updated our API panel, and in that in that context, we want to sort of go out and shout out to all the wonderful backend services out there that we can connect to. And of course, BuildShip is one of the ones a lot of our users really enjoy using. So I'm very excited that you wanted to join us on the stream and show a little bit of what BuildShip can do. And can you tell us what we're going to build today?
yes. Today is actually a very special day for us. So we're launching BuildShip V2, which is a huge revamp of what BuildShip has been, and it's we've applied a lot of the things that we learned from our users. So during this stream, we'd love your support and upvoting. We're currently number 2, so by the end we'll be number 1. But basically, BuildShip is total for your backend, which is help like visualizing your backend, try to build things in blocks and be able to scale things as well and build scalable infrastructure.
Nice.
Today,
So yeah, while you're watching this, just go and scan the QR code with your phone, or click on it in a new tab and go and support them on Product Hunt. Let's make sure they become product of the day.
thank you. So today, I think we want to do a AI competition. So we're gonna get different LLMs to compete against each other, and then you get to decide who the winner is, either speed or how you like the response. We'll start with something really simple. So I'll demo, as I build, I'll demo some of how BuildShip works. So BuildShip is made out of flows.
Should we switch over and show your screen?
Oh yeah. So so BuildShip is made out of flows. So you can always create flows. You can create unlimited flows, play around as much as you want, and we'll start from scratch. And we'll start with Claude. So Claude is one of the popular LLMs, and basically a flow has inputs and outputs. So let's say the input is a message, and then the output is going to be, so we need to pass in the message into a node that is Claude. So we have Claude is by Anthropic, and we have a huge library of different nodes. So here is Anthropic, and then we want to use the Claude AI text generator. So
so just quickly, these nodes are pre-built integrations that the user don't have to build themselves. They can just add in to
exactly.
like a bunch of different services, right?
Exactly. So each block is actually made out of Node.js code. So as a user, you don't have to. You can just use this as is. So like we can run this and you can use it directly. But as your business logic becomes more complicated, sometimes you do need access to the code. So what we'll do is it allows you to write whatever code you want in JavaScript and then run it and deploy it. So here we have, basically it's a structure of inputs and an output. So for example, we have instruction, which is, it presets it to a default dinner recipe. And then here is the prompt, which is usually what the user sends. So we'll just do inputs and then message. And here we have the flow output, and it's automatically set to the last node. So if we have more nodes here, it would select that. So what we'll do here is we can test the flow, and then we can say hi. And then here we have, it will start building the flow, and executing it. So it built it, now it's executing it, now it's telling us it's running, and here is our response. So
Very nice.
So
So
basically,
can I quickly ask,
yeah,
do I need, as a user, do I need to provide my API key here, or can I run it all through? How does that work?
So currently it's you do have to provide your own library, your own keys, so you can add as many keys as you want, and you can manage it. So let me do a quick. So we have all these integrations. So I've gone ahead and added all these different things that we could potentially use, and we have a lot more. So you can always add more keys, and basically it automatically detects. So I forgot to mention it because it automatically picked up that I already have an authority pick key, and it selected it. But if I didn't,
I just saw that was kind of magic, and I wasn't sure
yeah,
what was going on. But that's really cool that it just
yeah,
figures that out on its own.
yeah. So like the idea here is that it will next time. So the first time you do the setup, but next time it will be automatic. So that's one of our new features. And then hopefully in the future we'll also provide a BuildShip key, so you don't have to do it. So it'll be more magic. But now, so we tested it. Now this is working in BuildShip. We can see also here is logs. So we have logs here. It helps you figure out if there's any issues, if you want to rerun something, and it gives you what we sent in, what the input of the node was, and what the output was. So this becomes really critical when you're building really complicated workflows. And this is the output of the actual workflow. So now this is in BuildShip. What we want to do is we want to expose it to the internet, so Toddle can make a request and send a message and receive a response back, right? So we have a lot of different integrations, and the most common one is the REST API call. So we can select the REST API call. We can set the path, so we can set the path to wherever we want, and then we can connect the trigger. And here we have the endpoint. So if you want, you can send a request to this one, and then we can get the data as well. So we can verify that the message is coming through from Toddle. Do you want to try that out? Do you want to switch over and try that out?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So if you send me the URL, I'll get started on the Toddle side of it. Can I just say I really like the new UI. It's got a nice touch up in the new version.
Thank you.
Looks very tight.
Thanks.
Okay.
So you have the link.
Yeah, I've got it. So now that we've got a endpoint in BuildShip, we want to set up the UI to call it from Toddle, right? So I've of course prepared a little project. This is really just the like default. If you go and create a new blank Toddle project, this is what you end up with. And I'm not going to be doing a lot of designing today, so I'm just going to essentially like grab the stuff from our template here, and then we'll kind of shuffle that around. Then I can avoid the designing, which I think is better for everyone. Don't need that one. We'll set a background color and give it some padding around, so and some spacing in between. Right. So for anyone joining sort of from the BuildShip side, or anyone new to Toddle, where BuildShip is a tool for essentially setting up backend and server-side workflow, Toddle is purely a tool for building front-end UI, right? So you can build any kind of web interface you want. You can make it as complicated, as dynamic, or simple. Whatever you need to build, you can build it in Toddle, right? We've made something that's very flexible and really works for some of the, especially well for sort of the more advanced use cases, which I think this does qualify under, right? So I am gonna take, I think I'm gonna start by creating a component, because what we want to do in the end is we actually want to make like test several of these tools against each other. And as a result, it kind of makes sense if we have a component we can reuse for every single tool. So in this case, I can grab my article element here because I want to sort of list them up here, the different tools. And I can right click and say extract as a component. And we're going to call that chat. Or we'll just call it, chatbot. That's fine. So it kind of just grabs all the content out and gets me started on a new element. And in this case, components are sort of this reusable concept. Essentially, everything you can build in Toddle, you can build inside a component, then you can reuse it as many times as you want in your app. And they have a few ways you can communicate between components. One of them is you can add these attributes. So for every chatbot we do, we essentially want to sort of give it a different name, but also a different URL we call it on. So I'm going to start by saying, give it an attribute of name. And we're going to call this one Claude. So I'm just adding the test data here. So when I'm developing, I want this name Claude to be used. And then we'll give it a URL. And here I'm just pasting in the one I got from Shams, right? Mm-hmm. And so in my heading 2, we can now use a formula to bind that to name. And so formulas and the way this works in Toddle is somewhat similar to what you just saw in BuildShip with these flow graphs. Toddle differs a little bit in that when you're doing like just logic, like get me the name of an attribute, we use a separate interface than when we're doing like complex workflows like in BuildShip. And I'll show you both in a second. So now that we got a URL, the first thing we want to do is obviously call this API and check that it works, right? So we're going to create a new API. And we're going to say it's a REST API. And for the URL here, we're just going to use a formula again and say URL. And then I need to provide it with some inputs in the body. Is that correct, Shams? Maybe you can instruct me into what I need to do here.
So what we want to do is we want to send a message as a body,
Okay, so I want to create an object and then give it a property message.
Yeah.
Right, and then we'll just type a hello world message in to begin with, right?
As well.
Sorry?
Do we want to send instructions as well for later, or?
Yeah, we can do that as well. Is that is it reading that now, or did you hard code them in the workflow?
What we could do is like once you send in the data, we can also restructure the workflow. So it'll help us. So it's not only like a two-way relationship, right? So you can send us something, and then we'll change how we perceive that data.
Yeah.
So you can, yeah.
Let's test it with hello world first, and then see we can update it afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So now that I've got that, let's give that a show. I'm going to try testing it. Does a little bit of loading. And then, okay, so here I'm getting a result here saying hello world is not a list of ingredients that I can use to suggest. Obviously, it's because its system prompt said that it was supposed to be a recipe, right? Yeah. That makes sense. But before we go on to fixing that bit, let's just go and render the response out here. Sure. So LLMs have this tendency, actually all of them, to return data in a format called Markdown. They don't 100% of the time do that, but they quite often do. So it actually helps. That means we can do like rich text formatting. So Toddle has a package called Markdown that we can use here. So I'm just going to install that.
Nice. We can, I can add something to get it to do Markdown as well.
Well, it normally does it by default, at least every now and then.
Okay.
The great thing about Markdown is if you just give it normal text, it works as well. So you don't have to provide it with specific format, right? And so this Markdown component, just like I'm building a chat component, the Markdown component is one I got from the package. It takes some Markdown as an input, and I can get that from my JSON API and data. So now let's try and call that again.
Let's see if it.
And now we can see as soon as it's rendered, we get that in here, and it gets at least some level of formatting, right?
Yeah, that's
Cool.
pretty good.
So the last thing I want to do with this component right here is I want to make sure that the message we send it is actually also coming from attributes, because the idea here is that we're going to test these AI or LLMs up against each other. So I want to send the same message to multiple versions of this at the same time. So I'm just going to add a third attribute, message, and we will say chicken tikka masala, because it's currently a recipe. This is just a test value while we're working here, right? And then in my body, I can change that to be a message, right? Now what I'm calling this,
So attributes are variables?
so attributes are information that's being passed in when you call it. And in a second, I'm gonna go and use this. So now we got a little bit of a longer message, so therefore it took a little bit longer, right? But so attributes are information being passed in from another component. So now I've tested this. I know it works in isolation. I'm going to do one little change, which is I'm going to ask this one to refetch whenever it gets a new message. And I can actually do this just by turning on auto fetch. But I don't want to call it if the message. So auto fetch basically says whenever the information you need to call this request changes, call it again. Yeah. But I don't actually want it to do that unless there's a message. So if the message is empty or undefined, I want to turn that off. So what I can do here is I can specify it again with the formula and say if the message, and then we're going to say default to an empty string, if it's not equal to an empty string. So that's another way of saying if it's completely undefined or if you gave me an empty message, then don't auto fetch, but otherwise you should.
So every time I click the FX button, it opens a new sort of flow.
Exactly. Every time you click, like every time you see this little FX button, it means that this information can be specified using a formula. And that means you can set it dynamic. And that's why they are literally everywhere all over the app. You can see them all the places, right? Because there's so many things that can be, almost everything can be defined dynamic in some way.
That's right.
But so you asked about the attributes, right? Because I think if you're not familiar with Toddle, oh, there we are. They might not be too intuitive, but basically they're parameters for this component that you can specify whenever you're using it. So if I now go back to my homepage where I put in this chatbot, and I'm just going to get rid of these other ones, where I specified this chatbot, I now have under attributes, I have these different things I can say, right? So let's just go and grab what we call the URL here. We'll copy that. So from my homepage, I can now specify this one and paste in the URL. The name is Claude. And here, and the message is lasagna. I spelled that wrong.
It's okay.
It's now, we didn't put in a loading indicator, but it'll load that data and go and fetch it because I added that in. I hope. Yeah, there we are, right? So it automatically sort of figures that out, that I changed the input because I set it to auto fetch. And here I get these little 3 parameters I can use to configure my component. So this is why when we add a second chatbot, I can essentially go and say, actually, you should be called, let's say, OpenAI, and you have this URL instead, right? I think I want to do one more thing here before we go too much further. Which is I want to add a little bit of well, first of all, I think I want to add a height of like 600 pixels here. Does that make sense? We'll kill that one. And then here we'll add, oh no, actually we'll let that go to auto size 100%. And then this one, I think we'll put up here. We're just doing a little bit of layout work. Right. Nope, that was not quite right. That's right. Right, excellent. And this one we don't want to. Right.
Do we want to add in the instruction, or are we doing recipe like MasterChef or LLMs?
Oh, I think we should probably try a generic one, because if people want to test it, like the different AIs, we can also test it with we can sort of figure that out as we go, right?
Can we do 2 inputs or like 2 attributes?
Yeah, sure. But I'm just going to clear out this one for now, right? And we'll add in here a form.
Yeah.
In this one, and nope, that was the undo. I deleted a little bit too much. Here we are. We kill that one, and then here we want to add a form. And then inside the form, we'll add an input, which we need to style it, and a button. And so for the form, we'll go here and again make it flex. Nope, we don't want to. Yeah, well, doesn't matter. Input, we want to make it flex. And we'll add a little bit of gap. We're just doing some quick UI work here, right? We'll say 44, and we'll do the same for the button. All right, and then a little bit of styling to make this somewhat look reasonable. We'll just set it to gray there, and we'll make this one kind of light. That looks acceptable, right?
Pretty good. That's better than what I could do.
So now here, I basically want whenever I submit this data, I want that to be sent to the instruction, right? Because right now I'm just giving it a message, and every time I load it, it uploads, right? So so what I want to do here is essentially create a variable, and I'm going to call it input. And we're going to start as an empty string, right? So where attributes are, you can take information into your component. Variables are, I want to store some information locally inside the component, which is only local to the page or component you're in, but you can update it really quickly, right? And so in this case, in my input field here, I can then bind that to that variable. And that basically means every time my input changes, the variable will change. Every time the variable changes, my input will update, right? So if I say pizza, right? I've now updated this input value with the current value of pizza, right? The last bit is then, because I don't actually want to put pizza directly into my chatbot, because remember, every time the message changed, it'll refetch the API. So as I'm typing, I don't want it to call Claude for every letter. So I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to only update that when I'm done submitting my form, right? So I'm going to add a second variable called message, which is also going to be empty for now. And then I basically say, when I submit my form, we're going to set the message to be equal to input, the previous one. And we're going to set input to be equal to an empty string. So that way, when I'm submitting my form, I'm clearing the input field, and then I'm also setting the message for Claude. And now we just need to make sure that the message here is actually coming from our message variable. So we use, again, a formula. There's a lot of using formulas in Toddle. A lot of it is dynamic, right? So we use the message here. So now when I type here, I say soup, and it'll submit that and then update the message. We can see it here as we go. We can see that the message now is soup that's been set to Claude, and it'll go and fetch that or render that data, or generate that data and come back, right? Excellent. So I don't know what we do. Should we add another bot now, or do you want to change I kind of like the recipe, to be honest. I don't think it's all bad.
I think
maybe we stick with the recipe, and then we can, if we get to it at the end, we can change the system prompt.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. All right, we can switch over. How do we switch back? Should we switch back to?
I can do that. Here we go. So yeah, just before. So one of the thing is we want to add, like in the new Toddle new API, we support streaming content. BuildShip support that for almost all their LLMs yet, just not for Claude. I think, am I right in promising that's on the way?
Yeah, so it's I'll show you. So basically, yeah, so it's just JavaScript, but then we just need to add it to the library. Currently, it's only generating, but we can also make it stream. As long as the provider offers that feature, we can build it. And also, like, that's the thing about BuildShip is anyone can go in and make their own notes. So you don't have to wait for us if it's really something that you need. But here, when we like to check that we're getting the data, we can see we can get the data, and then we can see, oh, we got soup.
Oh, just before we switch it back, I'm just going to quickly go back and plug your product hunt. So for anyone jumping into the stream now, make sure to scan the code or click the link and go and support BuildShip, who are on product hunt today.
Yes.
And there we go.
Cool. Yeah.
Right.
So we see our data came in, and we have soup here, and all these other things that we could use if we wanted. But it's already, we already have it set up, but we can also, yeah, so we'll go back here and let's see. So we'll fetch, so these are all the requests you just sent him because you keep typing things. So we'll send you the Claude build after. But let's do a streaming example. So it's very similar. So we'll just do OpenAI, and we'll create, and we'll make a message as well. So message, we did that already, and then this is the text generator, but we're gonna go for so we'll go to OpenAI, and then we'll find the one that does the streaming. So we have Assistant, but Assistant has, I'll just show it quickly. It's more advanced in terms of it allows you to add tools and create, like, for example, if it decides it needs to send a message to Discord, it will do that on its own. But for now, we'll focus on just making recipes. So we'll do stream, and then so we have this OpenAI stream response. Does this make a recipe as well? Perfect. So let's clear this out.
Any chance you were hungry when you set this up?
I don't make the templates, actually. We'll need to figure out who is hungry and we send them food.
I think you're gonna need to set them like a vault pouch or something.
Yes. So we have the inputs, like we said. Here we can like do text, like we can append things to it, as well as like we can do JavaScript as well. So you can do more complex things if you need to as the input. So that's like our variables, right? So we have the inputs, but this is basically, this is it, the same thing. So we'll just, it's gonna return back the last node, which is returning a response stream. So as long as Toddle can handle it, it will be able to do the same thing. So we'll just connect it. So basically connecting creates that trigger. So the trigger is exposing that workflow to the world. And we can add, for example, so here we're making it on an exposed endpoint, but we can add, for example, there is a Firebase auth request. So for example, if you do have Firebase auth or some other authentication, you can add that, and that your request will be verified. But for now, we just need to ship it. And once we ship that, it should be the same. So you can, it's basically the same endpoint URL, except for the path. So we have OpenAI. Do you want to do that as a variable, or do you want me to copy that over as well?
No, we'll just copy it and send it. That's fine.
Okay. All right. So there you go. You want to try it? You want to give it a try?
Yes. So I'm just going to switch over to my side of the stream. And so right now we created this chat bot as a component, right? And so what's nice about that, if I now hold Alt and drag it, I can just create another one. So now I have 2 of them. And for the second one, I still want the same message, but now this is called OpenAI, and it's got a different URL. And so if we go and say, what are we eating?
Salad. We need more salad.
Okay. So now if we go and type in salad, we're going to get a very quick answer from Claude.
Where's our stream?
And nothing from let's go and have a look at why OpenAI didn't. So in this case, as I'm going into the component, this sort of doesn't now know what I was and what attributes I gave it in the other one. So I have to set these, right? I'm still doing these. The name doesn't really matter, but let's say put this OpenAI instead. We'll just change it now. So now I'm just working with the test data inside the component. Let's go and have a look. We've got a OpenAI error assertion.
I think that's really my bad.
I think it's probably, and we're also not doing any error handling or loading indicators or anything today. So actually, maybe I should add that real quick. We can add a little paragraph here and throw it up the top. And then we'll just write in the word here. Loading or generating. We don't say loading anymore. We say generating when it's AI, right? There we go. So, and I can say, well, I only want to show this while we're fetching. So I can use show height, and it is again another formula. And then here from my API, I can say if it is loading, I want to show that, right? So now every time I press play, it's going to say generating, and oh,
nice.
You fixed it. That was quick.
It was working. I don't know. Maybe we called it too early.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so now we're getting this nice stream. Let's go back and check our homepage now. Here and see. Let's go and type in what we're doing, salad. And we hit, and we can see because OpenAI is streaming, we're getting that result so much faster, right? We have to wait on the left for Claude to generate the whole thing before it actually returns the result, right? So that's kind of the nice thing of having streaming. It doesn't actually make anything faster, but it feels faster, and that can be like all the difference.
Mean, you can start reading it faster, and that's like
exactly
you're no longer waiting, right? So that's that's a big.
And so maybe a quick side note, like the way you get streaming to work in Toddle is you point it towards a server that supports streaming, right? There isn't actually any step 2 to it, right? You don't need to do anything special. Like any API that streams the data back will work in Toddle, right? And there's different kinds of, like in this case, we're just streaming text directly. So it's just a pure text output coming from the server. So therefore we can just put it directly into this markdown block, right? And you can see here, if you look at the raw text, it actually says ingredients. I don't know if that's clear. But over here, that actually gets shown as bold. And that's because the markdown result gets passed in here and shown as a sort of proper layout, right? One little nice feature, which we don't actually need today, is that you can also, like normally the API will automatically figure out what to pass. So if the result come back and say, hey, I'm actually a stream of JSON events, it'll figure out to pass that automatically. And if for some reason you're working with a backend that isn't configured right, and occasionally you run into that, in this case, we're lucky we have one that works the way it's supposed to, but occasionally you get something that sends like incorrect headers, etc. You can actually go and override how you want the result to be passed. So on our advanced tab, we have like a response passing. So if you know you're getting JSON or an event stream or JSON stream or anything like that, if you know what type of content it's supposed to be, you can say, well, go and pass it like that. And that overrides the sort of default headers of the response. Great. So now we're kind of, that's 2 already. Should we add more?
We can make it faster. So I hear Groq with a Q is a lot faster.
Groq with a Q?
Groq with a Q, not to be confused with Groq with a K.
Okay, I'm going to switch over to your screen now.
Yeah.
So you can show us what's going on.
Basically, let's do it quick. So we'll just duplicate. So we can duplicate. So since this is the same thing, so we'll just duplicate this. So it will make us the same workflow. We'll delete this node, and we'll add another node, and we'll search for Mr. Groq with a Q. We do have Groq with a K as well if you want, but I wouldn't trust that recipe. Where is the message? So here I'm typing message, and then it auto suggests the message, the variable, and it's saying, oh, I'm getting it from input message. So potentially you have other messages from other paths, so you can know where it's coming from. So here we can click on it, and that's a message, and it automatically picked up, oh, this is the, I'm going to return that. So the only thing we have left to do is just call this Groq. And we'll ship it. And I think once we ship it, it will automatically connect. No, we need to connect it first. So we'll connect the trigger. And then, so here we have other things that we can modify. So for example, if we want to do something more advanced, we could pass in the status code as something from the workflow itself. So currently we're doing something really simple, which is just returning the whole output, but we could do so now that I've connected it, it ships now. We can try it. That's it. I don't have anything else to do here. I've sent you the link.
Excellent. So we've got another one.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to switch over to Toddle. And so, yeah, I mean, we're just doing the same again. We're just holding down Alt, dragging them down to duplicate. And then we're just saying Groq with a Q. And we're pasting in its URL here, right? So what is the dish this time then?
Pasta. We already had salad.
Pasta. We already had salad. So now we can see, because we're putting, like, we're generating across all of them, and we can see that Groq is like by far the fastest to generate a recipe here, right? But I mean, OpenAI is coming at it, and Claude. It's not even quite. It's actually not even just the streaming. It's also generally just a little bit slower to generate, right?
Yeah, I think if it finishes,
I think there might be a chance that Groq has a different system prompt, given that it's. I mean, I don't think the goal of eating pasta is to build strength, is it? Maybe it is.
Yeah, we forgot to do that.
I think it might be a different employee who implemented that one.
They weren't as hungry. Maybe they implemented it after. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if I show, if I can get back.
Yeah, I'll switch over to you, so we can quickly set that up.
So I think what happened was after they had their meal, they felt guilty. So it was.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. It could be like they started out like with a big workout session, and then after that needed to regain some calories.
Yeah. So what we could do to make it fair, so we could introduce environment variables, which is something that we could do like a global global variable, say the instruction and the value is just equivalent dinner with ingredients I have. So we're supposed to be suggesting giving them the ingredients, but it still works. Okay, so this here, it gives us, we can specify the scope. So this is on the workflow, on the project. So we can share it. We can share the same variable across across the different workflows. So now that we have it here, we can say instruction, and it auto suggested it, and then we can go here, and then we can clear that out, and because it's the same name, it knows that we should do that. And I need to ship it again. And yeah, do you want to try that now?
So you're just going in and replacing all the instructions with the environment variable, right?
So then if we decide, so what happens with LLMs is that they change the base model all the time. So you want to be able to make that into a parameter that you can play with, so you can modify future, so that you're you're able to update and maintain things. So this gives you the ability to go in and update things globally, and wherever it's used in your project, it gets updated. So sometimes you wouldn't want to go in and update instruction for each one, especially if you don't know which one you need to update, right? So that's that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then I think what we've been building is really simple, right? I can show you so basically BuildShip helps you with connecting these different services together. And this is something simple. The base thing that BuildShip helps you with is securing your keys and managing your users as well. You can integrate with, like I said, Firebase or other services, and you can add validation here in terms of validate the JWT token or other methods of verifications that you want to set up. But
Yeah,
I wanted to show something
yeah. So I was just gonna say, we get this question all the time in Toddle. I want to call OpenAI, I want to call this and this and this service. Where should I put my API key? And the answer in Toddle is you shouldn't put the API key in Toddle, because that is all the code here runs in the browser. So that means anyone who's using your service will be able to read your API key if you store it in Toddle. That's why, if you want to, for example, call an AI like here, you can just quickly spin up, set up BuildShip, store all your API keys secretly on the server, far away from the user that might want to go and spy on it and use it for all sorts of other things. Make sure they only make the request you're actually allowed to.
Yeah. So you want to be able to put code on your front end so that things are fast and interactive, right? But you can't put things like keys. So that's why we have to have a backend. And also, I think it's a lot of things become more complicated. So the simple generating text thing is easy to do, and you could do it, but it becomes more complicated. I was building this game where it generates a whole story with different mystery things and suspects and hints, and basically BuildShip allows you to create parallel sequences. So you can go in and generate a victim image with a replicate model with what is this? Let's have a look. It's a Flex. So Flex Pro Ultra, the new image model, and generate loop through the different suspects and generate different images, and then upload those images. So for example, something like replicate generates an image, but it doesn't want to store it for you because they want to focus on AI inference, and they don't want to manage storage. So BuildShip helps you with storing images and audio files. So here we're generating the character saying their alibi, for example. So it's generating 11 labs. And all these things we manage the keys. And also you have a database. So if I click here, I can show the database quickly. And then, so this comes, I think it's not showing the game. Oh yeah, there's the games. So I'll set up a database, and I have some data already. Where is it? So you have different stories already. and there's also storage. So you can upload all the different images and the audio files and store it here. That basically, I think that covers a lot of why you would use BuildShip.
So you've got a lot more, like workflows is a simple one, but you also have a database, you've got file storage, you've got basically everything you need for your backend.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think we can, I was trying, so this should work now. What else do we want to build, or how much time do we have left? I think we did.
Well, should we just quickly check that the recipe works across all the...
Okay, let's try. I hope so. Maybe
it should. Well, actually, let's go and do it properly and open like in the preview. And let's say, so what are we doing now? Tiramisu. Let's finish with the dessert. I think we all know the guy on the right who's like, actually, tiramisu is a dessert, not a dinner recipe. So, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, they all have a bit of personality, doesn't it? Thank you, OpenAI. Garlic butter shrimp. Okay.
Wait,
but
why does that?
Okay.
Make it tiramisu.
I kind of like that. OpenAI is like, I totally understand what you're asking me, but here's a garlic butter shrimp pasta. Okay, fair enough. They take their system prompts very seriously. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna, I don't know, like we'll release this template, but I think by the time it's out, the BuildShip is probably not going to be online because it's using a API key for all these different models. But if you want to go and try this for yourself, you can clone the template. I'll share it later on, and then you can go and set up your own backend in BuildShip and add all these different models.
So we could make a template on BuildShip as well, and then all you have to do is swap in, like, select your keys, and then once you ship it, you have to just change the URL.
I think that would be great. Then people can go and play around, and I kind of think it can be quite useful to figure out, like, what's the difference between these models. You could also obviously change it to a more generic system prompt so people can ask more free questions, and sort of test out how they actually compare, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of getting close to the end. I think we should maybe switch to answering some questions.
Sure.
So I had one a little bit earlier. We had some pinned ones.
Wait,
so,
I have a question for the viewers. Did they upvote the product? I have a question for the viewers. Did they upvote the product?
Okay. Well, we can start with that one then.
Yes. So the question is, did you upvote the product? And then now we can go to the next.
Well, yeah, actually, let's just, before we do anything, let's just go back and put the product on screen on. Okay. So anybody who's watching who haven't scanned that or haven't clicked on it, go and do that now and support BuildShip on Product Hunt. They just launched the new V2, the whole UI and everything you were looking at. They launched today, is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have today, so it's brand new.
Yeah.
So make sure you do that and scan it, and support them. So first question I got here is can we restrict accessing this BuildShip flow to certain users, like role-based permission, from my app in Toddle?
What do you have in terms of, do you have, like, can I use Firebase auth on Toddle?
You can use whatever you want. You just give us an authentication token, and then we store it securely and send it back to you whenever you need to make an authenticate request. So Toddle works with any kind of authentication. So yeah, and BuildShip has authentication built in.
Yeah. So we help manage that as well.
And you can then configure all the rules to make sure that you can only access the things you're allowed to on your BuildShip backend, right?
Yeah. So basically the JWTs can have the roles inside them, and then like I can show I can show the Firebase one
Yeah.
quickly. Let's see. So if we go in and then I add the trigger. So basically, you can set up. You can look at the documentation, and then you can pass in your project ID, and that allows you to use Firebase authentication, which is like really good in terms of it's it has all the different providers, and you can basically hear. Let's see with the user. So we go here. So we have different UID, the user data, and then we can also get the user. There's more things, and then you can even check, for example, your database if that user should have access to this project or something like that.
Great. So I've got another question here, which is, can you explain what it is BuildShip does? Like, I'm 5 years old. I'll just show it here on the. Oh, we had this one first. We'll put in. Can you explain what it is BuildShip does? Like, I'm a 5-year-old. Which I think we've done a pretty good job so far of that. But can I create custom JWT tokens with BuildShip?
Not sure. No, we don't provide anything by default, so you could implement something yourself. So basically, BuildShip is an abstraction of a Node.js server, right? So whatever you could do on a Node.js server, you could do it on BuildShip, and we don't currently provide a managed auth solution because I think like we're focusing on a lot of the experience of building flows, and like auth is already solved, I think. So we will eventually have our own auth, and then that like makes it better to have a cohesive system. But right now it's been focusing on building that better experience and delegating the stuff that's already made, so we could integrate with Auth0 and other services.
So you can actually, if you want to specifically use Auth0 or whatever other solution, you can take that in.
Yeah. So you can send in the request, and that you can add a JW like a Auth0 node to parse that token and get that data back, and all that. You could do it just like you would do on a normal backend.
Excellent. We got one more here. What is the benefit to using BuildShip over other backend tools like Sano and FastGen? Just curious, not being difficult. This is a very cool demo, by the way. Thank you for the. Yeah. So what is the where is it you would say that what is the big sales pitch? Where is it BuildShip really shines?
So I think it's so I was talking to a user like 3 days ago actually, and then he said he tried FastGen and then he came back. So and I think he said, I was like, why? And he said it's basically the principle of being able to do whatever you want. So I think with FastGen, they provide good integrations and make it really easy to build things, but then you get stuck or you have to do something more complicated. Versus with BuildShip, it's really focused on getting you started as easily as possible, but having that really quick access to like upskill yourself to write code or ask AI to generate the code for you, and then you can view the code, and that's how you can learn. And I think like code is not scary. It's just a bit boring sometimes to keep writing and looking at documentation and stuff. So it's having a like that's the one of the things about the reason for building BuildShip is building something around how could we build backends that are that allow people to build together with AI. So I think like we will eventually like build more features with it. So currently we do node generation, we do autofilling of the values with AI, but eventually we'll have, you ask AI to do something, but you don't want to trust the AI to do it. So you want to be able to see it. So BuildShip is already based to like help you collaborate with AI to build your backend. So that's.
Do you think you could show us really quickly how AI generates a node?
Yeah.
I think that might be worth seeing. That was my screen. Here you go.
Okay. So what do we have? So you can ask. So we have a structure where it's trying to force you to think about how to prompt an LLM to give you a good result. So I don't know, what do we want to do?
Could we get it to try and generate a JWT, or does that require adding some additional libraries?
Let's try it. Look, this is the thing. It's given a JWT. Like I want to, so it already does that. I want to validate, like let's say in the Firebase project ID. I want to validate the token and return the user object, right? So we'll do that. And basically, like you could do, let me try to, you could add in the spec, or you could add in like additional information like the library code and things like that. And that helps it do even a better job. So it's all about like, we just have some prompts inside to make it generate a BuildShip node, but it's basically whatever as the LLMs improve, BuildShip code generation will improve. So you can see here, it generated, so it gave me the field for JWT, and it gave me the field for the project, and I can see here, and I can modify it, and it gave me the code, and we can test it out. I don't have it at the moment. But basically, you can test it. If you don't like it, you can ask it to modify. Same thing, additional context, things like that. It's an iterative process.
That's very cool. So that's the answer to the other question as well. Yes, you can absolutely create JWTs, and actually you don't need to know how to do it ahead of time, because I can help you there.
Yeah.
So we got just a
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no. We had the last thing is just a comment saying like it's a dream mix of no code and code. So yeah, I very much agree. I mean, we share a little bit of the same sort of approach in Toddle. We allow you to create custom formulas and actions, and also experiment a bit with AI as a means to do that. And I think the whole idea of having AI generate everything, we've at least everything so far doesn't really seem to be the right approach. It seems to, when you give it too much freedom, it tends to go a little bit off the reservation. But any sort of node or any time when you can use it to generate like a defined part of your app where it's a very clear instructions, it can be a massive time saver. Right?
Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, I actually tried Toddle a few days ago. I really liked it compared to other no-code tools. Being able to think about the logic and the flow was really easy for me to like build things. I was like, I got further than I thought I would compared to other
we
tools.
very much built it originally for programmers and developers, so people who have any sort of previous dev experience usually get it right away. And I think it ends up being a big benefit for people just starting out, because you kind of learn to develop in a way that is essentially the same as if you were learning to code JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Right?
Yeah. So I think
cool.
like
So I'm glad it worked.
Yeah, we're building is like a tool for lazy developers or people that need help building things but don't have the full skill set. So it kind of helps both ways.
Excellent. So I think we're getting towards the end of the stream. We're kind of out of time. So before we go, I want to plug one too. As I mentioned at the start, we're doing Backend Appreciation Month. So we are working with a ton of great backends. Also, we did a stream 2 days ago with Sano. And so we're doing a lot of great content. So make sure to go and scan here. Check out the post on our blog about this, where you can find a lot more information about what's coming up, as well as our big competition we've got going on about building a streaming application in Toddle, where you can win a Mac Mini. All you need to do is build an application kind of like the one we did today that streams, that uses an AI for streaming content in some way. And you don't have to be the best developer. You don't have to be the greatest coder or no coder or visual developer in the world. We mainly focus on, is it a fun idea, and how is it executed, right? So it doesn't have to be the most complex solution that'll win. So yeah, go and check that out, and go and submit your interest to the competition.
Wait,
sorry?
Can we submit a Mac Mini to get a competition? I didn't know.
If you can win a Mac Mini, you can absolutely win a Mac Mini.
We can throw in a Mac Mini for like a BuildShip competition. How do we do that?
Well, I mean, we should do it. We should talk about that and set up a competition with BuildShip. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah, well, that'll be TBD, and we'll announce that whenever we figure that out. Yeah, everybody gets a Mac Mini by the end. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank you very much to everyone who tuned in to watch. And thank you, Shams. It was a real pleasure. And also really great to see the new version of BuildShip. It looks incredible, and I'm really excited to dive in and try it out. And if you haven't, I know everyone watching have gone to product. Like, I don't need to say it, but for anyone who may not yet have done so, go and make sure to scan the QR code or click the link and go and support them on Product Hunt.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much to everyone. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Bye.